Hey guys, huge announcement. 8 years in the making. I have finally published my first book, A Worthwhile Youth. I'm so excited, guys. I cannot wait to get this in your hands, get this in the hands of Gen Z, of teens and young adults, teens, 20s, 30s, all across America. It's going to help so many of us. This is the countercultural movement that we as Christians need to turn the tide on our culture and produce love, truth, and hope for our generation and beyond. I cannot wait for you to read it. It will be available June 15th. June 15th, just in a few weeks, it'll be available. Should be able to find it in a lot of bookstores online, and I'll be having links on all my social media platforms, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to set it right over here. There we go. And I got another one up there too. That's one of the test copies. I've learned a lot about how to publish a book now, so it's taken a while. Today's video, it's going to be a long-form content. We're going to be listening to an interview I did with Pride Haggerty, who is a video journalist for the College Fix, a news organization geared towards college students. And in this interview, she interviews me all about my book, what it means to be countercultural, what was the inspiration for A Worthwhile Youth, God's calling on my life, all that. I really hope you'll give it a listen. I hope it encourages you and inspires you to go out into the world and be countercultural, stand up for your Christian beliefs, and not be afraid to fight the good fight. Give it a listen. Hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in the next video.
Tori Haas is Gen Z's leading countercultural voice. He's a debt-free entrepreneur, charismatic speaker, financial advisor, and now author. In his new book, A Worthwhile Youth, Tori challenges teens and young adults to think long-term, embrace adversity, and build a youth and life of responsibility, virtue, and purpose. Here's Tori Haas.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yes, I have a very charming, thick Southern accent, just FYI. I am from the South, yes. You probably think I'm from Alabama, but I'm from North Carolina.
Yeah. So do you want to just first start by telling us a little bit about your book and the inspiration behind writing it?
Yeah. So it's been a long time coming. Like we talked about earlier, it's been 8 years. 8 years in the making. Finally got it done. Here is the physical copy right here, as you can see. I'm wearing the same outfit too. Just trying to brand myself there. Blue and blue. I love blue. I'm a Duke fan, North Carolina. I started this book. I'm 26 now. I started this when I was 18, and it took 7 years to write the book, and then it took another year to basically get through all the editing and publishing and all that stuff. But it started really in high school. My high school experience was basically like the High School Musical. I was the student body president. I was the mascot. I did the pep rallies. I was popular. I had a lot of fun. It was just a great experience for myself, and I'm thankful to the Lord for that experience. High Brighton High School, shout out to my alma mater. And during that time, though, I really enjoyed just talking to underclassmen. And I had a low-key candy business going on, which I talk about in the book in the entrepreneurial section. So you can check that out when you read the book. But I had a passion for just talking to young people. Like I really enjoyed talking to my generation, especially underclassmen who I didn't realize as much at the time, but in hindsight, looking back, I thought, well, they really looked up to me as the guy that was on the morning radio program, was leading the pep rallies, saying hello to me in the hallways, all that type of stuff. And that spawned into just me just talking to them, selling candy to them, and just enjoying talking to people. Not very shy person, love to just talk to other people. And that spawned into a desire that God was molding my heart to become more aligned with his will, which is to serve young people, to serve our generation, teens and young adults, Gen Z. And then after high school, after I graduated that summer, I had a landscaping business, and I had that until basically the beginning of 2026. I ended it that time, so I did that for a long time as well. And after high school, I was planning on going to college, to which I eventually did. But I thought, man, there's something missing here, Lord. I was talking to God. I remember just talking to him while I was doing some mulching in a yard at somebody's house, and I was like, Lord, I need some guidance here, because high school was awesome. I think college is going to be important, but I feel like I'm going to stagnate and just go downhill from here. Like, how can I peak from there? Like, use me, Lord. Charlie Kirk at his funeral, he one of the signs on there was, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And that was just like that. I didn't think about that at the time, but that was very much the mentality I had there of, Lord, what do you want to do with my life? Use me. Let me just be a servant to you. And it was August of 2018. Again, I was 18 years old at the time. And God just put on my heart. He's like, you should write a book. I didn't, it's not like I verbally heard him say that, but he just really just convicted me, which was very unusual because I hated reading up to that point. I didn't like to read. I remember telling somebody in high school just a little bit before I actually decided to start writing this book, probably 4 or 5 months before, that I hated reading. I mean, I literally told her, I remember telling this girl that. And that really, I was like, man, a book? Really? Okay. Well, we'll see. And I just trusted God. And the original idea was called something like Be Countercultural, and then it was 25 tips for teens and young adults written by a teenager. Because I was a teenager at the time. Little did I know it'd take me 8 years to finish it. But so obviously that title was changed. But
Mhm.
but I started off with having 25 points of, hey, if you follow these points, this will help you live what would eventually become a worthwhile youth. Just have a better life, and if you make good decisions with your life will turn out better. Common sense, biblically based stuff your God fearing grandmother would tell you. And that over time, after several drafts, I went through 7 drafts actually over 7 years. So very, very interesting. God's complete number being 7. I just thought that was like really interesting too. The fact that it worked out like that.
Yeah.
And over that time, it morphed into this, which is a worthwhile youth, a countercultural view on navigating your teenage and young adult years. So the principles were the same. It's just I needed to grow a lot in order to write this book. I mean, it's and see the goodness is you can see God through this whole thing because that first draft absolutely sucked. I mean, it was terrible. So it took me a long time to get to 7 drafts to finally have something worthwhile to say.
Mhm.
Plus, I had to read a ton of books, and you can see in my background in my studio, I have a whole library of books that I read, and I had to read a ton. I probably read well over 100 books between now. I probably read almost 200 by that point between 18 and 26 now because I had to read a lot of books and listen to a lot of podcasts and just research a ton of statistics to have something worth saying. And that's all God because you can see He's molding my heart throughout this whole process to become like Him and pursue the passions that He has for me, the purpose He has for my life.
Mhm.
Over that time, though, it's just slow, tedious work and constantly in touch with my mentors, with editors, with the publisher, with reading books and just learning from other people, just really learning in knowledge, writing stuff down and growing in my character in my personal life with my habits, breaking bad habits to develop new ones. Because again, if I'm going to write a book for teens and young adults, I got to practice what I preach. And I doesn't say I'm perfect at it because nobody can live up to perfect standards of Jesus. But
Mhm.
really, it's just if you make these specific over 8 chapters in the book, if you make these specific decisions with your life will turn out better. It's not me saying that. I didn't make any of this up. It's God. It's literally just saying, hey, maybe there's something to this thing called the Bible. This old fashioned, outdated book may actually have some good advice for us as Gen Z after all. And
Mhm.
that's what I use to just put into practical terms for teens and young adults using modern data. There's almost 150 sources in this entire book, so very well documented. It's not just my anecdotal opinions, and
Mhm.
that would eventually become a worthwhile youth. So here we
Yeah.
are.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in your book, you explore a lot about what it means to be countercultural. So can you unpack what that means, especially in the 21st century?
Yes, yes. So to be counterculture, we gotta kind of go back in time a little bit because the counterculture from our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation is not the same as what I mean by be countercultural today. And I know that maybe not confusing to our generation, but for a lot of parents out there, I want to explain this. In say 1960s, 70s, 80s, that generation, counterculture was bucking traditional Christian values, uh, going into drugs, alcohol, casual sex, just living wild, hedonistically, being very hedonistic, and what would eventually become our hedonistic, postmodern, narcissistic culture that we kind of have today. Not kind of, we have today. And the counterculture movement of today now for Gen Z is literally the reverse of that because the counterculture back then has now become the culture. What our parents' generation called countercultural, this is now the culture. We live in
Mhm.
a hedonistic, meaning everybody just does what is right in their own eyes, does whatever makes them feel good. Pursuing your own selfish desires is the pinnacle of purpose and fulfillment and happiness in life. And we see this in phrases like YOLO. You only live once, so just have fun. Do whatever feels good. If it makes you feel good, do it. Feel good culture, as I talk about in the book. And that is our culture today. Now, what the culture will tell you is that if you do those things, your life will actually be better. You will be happier, you'll be more fulfilled, it'll be a great life. But that is not true. And it's not just because I said so, it's because the data clearly indicates that our generation has done everything under the sun possible to chase purpose and meaning and happiness in life. And it turns out we're more lonely, depressed, suicidal, uh, alone, isolated than ever before. And I think there's a correlation there. I think it's a very obvious correlation. We're more addicted to gambling, to pornography, to drugs, alcohol, all this stuff. We are just indulging in vices that are destroying our generation because our culture has told us that will make your life better. And
Yeah.
that's wrong. So therefore, we need a counterculture. We need a new counterculture, a return to those old values because it turns out that modern data proves this, as I talk about in the book, that if you listen to your God-fearing grandma, or your God-fearing grandpa, the church-going grandparents that we have that everybody in our generation thinks is outdated, and that's just, oh, they're just out of touch. They don't know any better. That's a whole different generation. We know more because we're so technologically advanced and we've got it all figured out now. The arrogance of youth. Hey, if we actually listen to their advice, we might actually have a better life. And not because
Mhm.
they specifically came up with this, but because they actually follow what the Bible teaches and what God says how to do life. And this book is a Christian based book, but it's intended for an audience that is skeptical or at least open to Christianity. I'm not cramming Bible verses down your chapter, down your every page. There's not a Bible verse on every page, nor was that the intention. The intention is to say, hey, God says there's a way of doing life. Now, we can choose not to do that, which is what our generation largely does. But if we do that, we hurt ourselves. We don't
Mhm.
lead to flourishing. We don't lead to a better life for ourselves. We don't lead to helping and loving and willing the good of others. We actually end up destructing ourselves. We cause chaos. It's not good. It's sad. But if we are countercultural, if we actually say, I might ought to think about what God, the Bible says about sex or about money or about uh, thinking long term about my life, being a good steward of this one life I have, thinking about my eternal future. If we think about those things and we put our mind in that avenue, it will actually lead to goodness and flourishing in our life. It's
Mhm.
hard because then we have to surrender. Then we can't be narcissistic. Then we have to be selfless instead of focusing only on ourselves. But the reality is when we will focus on when we be countercultural, when we say, "Hey, I'm going to listen to what the Bible says about this." There might actually be some good advice in there. When we get over ourselves, humble ourselves and are open to it. And if you're open to it, you can read this book and it will show you, it will give you a roadmap of, hey, if you do these things, not because Tori said so, but because the creator of this universe gives us guidelines out of love for us. He loves us so much that he says, hey, if you do these things, your life will be better. If you don't do these things, you're going to hurt yourself. And I don't want you to hurt yourself. That's what it means to be countercultural. It is saying no to the culture, no to hedonism, no to selfishness, narcissism, and yes to following biblically based common sense, to following what God says about life. That
Mhm.
is a being countercultural today is being pro people. That is what this book is about. It is I wrote this book because I love people so much. I love my generation so much that I'm tired of seeing us be hurt. I've been hurt
Mhm.
by the culture. You've been hurt by the culture. Everybody listening to this has been hurt by the culture in one way or another. And that's not good. Our culture does not help us. It's a lie. But if we follow, hey, Maybe there's something to this God. Maybe there's something to the Bible. If even if you're not a Christian, if you follow the biblically based guidelines for life, your life is still going to just turn out better. You don't even have to be
Mhm.
a Christian, and your life will turn out better. And that's the beauty of it. That's how much God loves us, and that's a short version of what it means to be countercultural today in the 21st century.
Yeah. And also in that chapter of being countercultural, you mentioned this aspect of having discipline and how this kind of people have strayed away from this. So how can you kind of stay back in touch with that and kind of had that segue towards living a more useful or
Worthwhile
worth?
youth.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there's three main elements of what it specifically means to be counterculture. I laid this out in chapter 1. Number 1 is to be loving, and we go into what the culture says about love and what God says about love, what the countercultural take of love would be. Number 2, what you're talking about is embracing adversity. And number 3 is leaving behind a worthwhile legacy. Obviously, we want to leave behind a great legacy for our youth and life because YOLO, you only live once, so don't waste it. Not YOLO so I can do whatever makes me happy and feel good and lead to a chaotic life. No, YOLO because I want to leave behind a great legacy for my youth and for my future children to see and other people around me to see. Back to your point, though, on embracing adversity, that's a huge gap today of people who are young people who are afraid of embracing adversity. And I think there's a lot of fears out there from honestly a lot of political commentators acting like and politicians saying little man can't get ahead. Little man can't get ahead today. You just can't make it. It's because of foreign powers, because of conspiracy theories, because well, everything's just so expensive today. You just can't get ahead. And I'm here to tell you that you can get ahead. I want you to be encouraged because that language deflates our generation. That language says, well, I can't get ahead, I guess, so why am I even trying? Why do I even need to take on responsibility, get married, or pursue marriage, move out of my parents' house, get a productive job, earn a credential, and just be a responsible citizen of America? That right there is deflating. That notion of little man can't get ahead is deflating. That prevents us from doing this stuff. But my book talks about this a lot. I'm clearly indicating, hey, you can move out of your parents' house. You can graduate college debt free. You can get on with your life, embrace adversity, pursue for guys, pursue women with intention, being chivalrous, not being selfish, and ladies too, just being a mature and disciplined woman, not a girl, not a little girl. And guys, same thing. Not being dependent on your parents, getting your own house in order so you can take care of a future wife and children one day. So the one of the angles I really want to take with that you brought that up is from a Christian perspective, because I know most people who read this book are Christians, and I like to use the example of think about all the people in the Bible that God used for great stuff, like Moses, Noah and the ark, that story, David and Goliath, even looking at Jesus' ministry, the Apostle Paul traveling all over the Mediterranean, serving God and promoting his messages to grow the kingdom. If you look at all these great leaders of the faith, these people embraced adversity. And we don't really talk about that a lot, but these people were not lazy bums. They were hardworking. I mean, Paul made tents as a side hustle. Okay, he was out there hustling, making tents while he's preaching, while he's pursuing the ministry. David killed a bear and a lion before he even killed Goliath on his own. And these are hardworking people. Noah spent, 120 years or something building the ark, a long time building the ark. I mean, these people are diligent, they're disciplined, they're responsible, they're mature. They embraced adversity, and God used them for greatness. So my challenge in from this book and just in general for young men, particularly young Christian men, is, and for women too, because it's not all like women can be adverse. There's plenty of look at Esther. Esther's a great example. She was courageous. She pursued God and she was disciplined to do what he was calling her to do. So perfect examples of women too. But for our generation, for Gen Z, hey, if you want God to use you, you've got to embrace adversity.
Mhm.
And even from a non-Christian perspective, if you don't embrace adversity, your life's going to suck. Okay? It's going to suck. If you just do whatever makes you happy all the time, Your life's going to suck. It's going to feel good for about 30 seconds, and then everything after that's going to lead to depression and despair. But instead, if you say, no, I'm gonna wake up early in the morning, I'm gonna exercise, I'm going to surround myself with wise counsel, I'm gonna seek mentorship, all the things I talk about in my book. I'm gonna graduate college debt free while everybody else is going into a bunch of student loan debt. I'm gonna do the hard work, and then not only will my life be better, but God will use you. God will honor that. I believe God will honor that, and He will use you for greatness because you see that throughout the Bible. The people that
Mhm.
God used for the biggest things were warriors. They were disciplined. They embraced adversity. And that's what our generation has to do to turn this counterculture, to foster a new counterculture and turn this culture around.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, yeah, you kind of touched on this, but graduating from college, you did designate a chapter to kind of whether or not you thought the college was worth it. So, what points do you want the reader to take away from this chapter?
Yeah. I want to. One of the biggest things I want to highlight is how much of an inspiration Charlie Kirk was on this chapter of my book. This is chapter 7. The title of the chapter is "Should You Really Go to College?" Charlie Kirk has a great book. He published a book I think it was several years ago at this point. It was called The College Scam, and that is a gold mine book. I encourage everybody to go read that book. It was a great read. I enjoyed it, and it really inspired me for this chapter on, hey, I mean, do you really need to go to college? Is it worthwhile to go to college? And he goes into a lot more detail than I do in this chapter because the whole book is designed just for what I put into one chapter. But I lay out a lot of key things from that book and others in my chapter on, hey, if you should only go to college if you're doing it the right way. And what I always say in short, in a nutshell from that chapter, is focus on career first, credentials second. I'll say that one more time. Career first, credentials second. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of times, people in high school, and I'm talking to myself because I literally talk in my book, I almost fell victim to exactly what I'm preaching against in my book of if you focus on credentials first and career second, then you'll probably go to college and waste your time because you're thinking, well, I'm going to go get a 4-year degree and then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do in college. And if you do that, you're probably going to change your major, waste time, waste money, and then maybe graduate with a degree that you may or may not ever use. And the statistics bear this out. There's a ton of people today. I have them in my book. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a ton of people today, young people in their 20s and 30s, that have jobs in careers that they did not major in.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying is figure out what do I want to do first, even if that means taking a gap year. Oh, I know that's forbidden. We can't talk about gap years. No, let's calm down. All right. It's okay to take a gap year. Don't panic. Just be intentional. But take a gap year if you need to. Save up your money, work, do an internship. Figure out what you want to do first, whether that's be in finance like what I do, or real estate agent, or a nurse, whatever that is. Figure out what you want to do first, career first, then figure out what credentials do I need to achieve my career goals. If you do that, I am very confident that you're going to waste very little time. You're going to spend the least amount of money, and you're going to get out quicker and get on with your life faster. Because what happens too often is people our age stay in college indefinitely. They graduate with like 3 bachelor's degrees when they're 29 years old, when they should have just been working. Because by the time you get to 29, you've already wasted your whole 20s by just staying in school this whole time. Sure, you have some credentials, but could you have done that better? Could you have been a better steward of the time that you had during this season? And I think, yes, oftentimes that is the case. So if you focus on your career first, what do I want to do? Then you focus on your credentials second. You can go to whatever school or whatever credential you need to get that career goal and then just get on with your life. Get
Mhm.
out of college, get out of post-secondary education as fast as possible. And you may not need a 4-year plus degree. Okay? Just because you can have a great college experience that is not a justification for going to a 4-year university. Career first. If you want to be a real estate agent, don't even go to college. Just graduate. Just take your real estate license. Graduate high school. Take your real estate license. Boom. Go into the workforce. You want to be in finance, like I did. I went to 4 years for a finance degree, and I've never used my degree one time. It was a complete waste of my time. I should have just taken. I'm an advisor, so you had. I took the Series 65 exam, and it's just a finance exam, and voila, I'm done. I could have just taken that out of high school and already been in this career instead of wasting 3.5 years. Graduated debt free, yes, but wasted a lot of time when I didn't need that degree.
Mhm.
So you could have got on with your career quicker, which means you get on with your career faster, you can get married sooner, you can have children sooner, you can build wealth faster, and you can pursue what God's calling you to do sooner.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay? So I just want you guys to remember career first, credential second. You'll save time, save money, and you'll just get on with your life quicker. Stop wasting time. Stop wasting the time, the grace that God has given you. Move on with your life. And that's what that chapter really talks about. It goes into a lot more detail of the problems with college today, some of my personal experience from it, and alternatives to college. But yeah, Charlie Kirk was a huge, huge inspiration to that on that point. And I it's too bad I'll never get to meet him because it would have been awesome to meet him. But yeah, he inspired that chapter for me to write that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you're a financial advisor and a debt-free entrepreneur. So you wrote a lot about personal finances and kind of how to deal with that. What do you want young readers to understand about that chapter and kind of the key takeaways?
That Dave Ramsey's awesome and you should listen to him. I mean, literally, I know, guys. I know. Oh, Dave Ramsey's so old and he's out of touch and he doesn't understand anything. Look, I'm not saying believe Dave Ramsey because Dave Ramsey says it. I'm saying read Proverbs, read the Bible, and it just so happens that a lot of what Dave Ramsey teaches lines up perfectly with what biblically based finances are. Okay? Just don't take my word for it. Read Proverbs 22:7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. There's many other ones in there about being intentional with your money. Another one that comes to mind is a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's another one of just thinking long term, building wealth, and leaving behind a legacy for your money. Again, read Proverbs. Proverbs is such a financial Bible, a book of the Bible. It's just a great financial resource in the Bible. And people don't often think about how the Bible talks about money, but it talks about money a lot. Jesus talks about it some. And I would encourage all of you to read Proverbs and then literally what the Dave Ramsey baby steps teach, baby steps 1 through 7 on the quickest way to build wealth. It is a tried and true path to building wealth. It's biblically based. It's hard. It's not sexy. It's not cool. It's not, oh, crypto. Yeah, that's awesome. It's not anything like that. It's just common sense. But common sense is a superpower nowadays. So that's why most people don't adhere to it. And wisdom, here's a good definition of wisdom from Chip Ingram. He's a pastor in California, I believe. I like to listen to his sermons sometimes. And he talks about how wisdom is understanding what or how God designed life to work and doing it. And that last part is what I want to highlight here. And doing it. Sticking to a budget. Paying off and staying away from debt. Saying no when I literally cannot go eat at Chipotle or I cannot go to Ulta and get some cool new makeup or something. And I actually don't have it in the budget, so I need to say no. Just having delayed gratification, investing early, and giving, being a very generous person, tithing at church, helping others in need. That stuff is so not sexy at all. That's so boring. Budget, stay away from debt, say no when you can't afford something, pay cash, and invest in very general investments and give. That's not cool. That's boring. I get it. It also happens to work. That's the thing. It's if you it doesn't matter what your income is, it doesn't matter what your situation is. It doesn't matter if you have $200,000 in student loan debt or if you're debt free, you have an emergency fund and you've got a six-figure job. Those biblically based principles work. They work in any situation, and you will build wealth really fast if you will just stick to that plan. And I lay out that's basically the 5 foundations of personal finance I lay out in my book, which is just being intentional, sticking to a budget, delaying gratification, learning to say no. It's the behavior side of things, checking your behaviors with money. Investing for retirement is the fourth one. The third one was avoiding debt, and then the fifth one just giving. If you
Mhm.
do those 5 things, you can build wealth. It's not because I said so or I just reinvented the wheel and just found, oh, I found this secret hack to building wealth that nobody knows about. No, it's not something stupid conspiratorial. It's just, hey, God says that wealth building should go a certain way, and it just so happens if we listen to him, it actually is pretty good. I'm not
Mhm.
preaching prosperity gospel over here. It's not like your life's going to be amazing. You're just going to have, God's going to bless you with wealth. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is if you discipline yourself and you put in the hard work and you stick to the basics of personal finance, you will build wealth. The little man can get ahead, but you can't do that if you're not being intentional, if you're going into a bunch of debt, if you are saying yes to everything. I want to buy this new car. Oh, I want to go to the movies tonight. Oh, I want to go to Chipotle. Oh, I want to go to Starbucks. Whatever.
Mhm.
You're not investing for the future because you're spending all your money on debt and stupid immediate pleasures, and you're not being generous. If you don't do those things, your finances are going to suck and you're going to be afraid. You're going to be afraid of money. It's not going to be a pleasant conversation. And what I'm saying is, hey, be financially countercultural. Do these things. You will get out of debt if you're in debt. It will help you so much building wealth at a young age, and it will just rewrite your entire family tree. I mean, just
Yeah.
if you can start your 20s off with fully funded IRAs or 401ks and an emergency fund, you have a solid budget, you have good budgeting behaviors, you are being generous with your tithing and stuff. If you start that in your 20s, guys, you are going to get so far ahead financially. It's unreal. And that's
Mhm.
what that chapter is about, just thinking long term and making wise, financially countercultural decisions.
Yeah. So being countercultural kind of spans from not just our relationships, but also into finances, personal life, and our futures moving forward. I feel like it kind of touches all the bases, which is so awesome.
Yeah, it does
But
because the finance comes back to everything.
yeah,
It all
right.
lines up with everything. I mean, if you don't have your finances in line, well, college is probably not going to work out for you, or if it is, it's going to be a bunch of debt. Getting married is going to be more difficult if you're not being a good steward of your money. Guys,
Mhm.
get your freaking act together. There are good women out there that need a godly man to be disciplined with their money. They
Mhm.
need to be like you're going to lead your household one day, but you can't even say no when you go to a gas station and you buy 5 energy drinks and 2 bags of chips. I mean, that's not being a disciplined, responsible man of God that you need to be. You cannot lead your future wife and children well when you have bad money behaviors. How are you going
Mhm.
to take care of them? How are you going to provide for them? It doesn't matter how much money you make. If your behaviors suck, then your finances are going to suck. And you're going to
Right.
retire broke and be dependent on social insecurity.
Yeah. No, social insecurity.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody wants that because that
No,
sucks.
nobody. Yeah. So, how would you say your own perspective has shifted writing this book, and then how has it sharpened your writing and thinking skills?
Mm. I would say that the first thing I would say is this book has helped me become a much more loving person. Writing this book has helped me become significantly more loving, as Jesus would want me to. And the reason why is because I grew up, like many people in the South, grew up in a very legalistic culture.
Mhm.
Southern Baptist, anyone in here? I grew up in that culture, and it was very legalism. A good definition is requiring more of people than what God requires of you. And that legalistic culture is all truth and no grace, no love. This book has become, it started off as all truth, like the very legalistic approach, but God has molded my heart to become more loving. So that way there is the hard truth, which is, yeah, the truth kind of hurts sometimes, but there's also grace and love of, yeah, it doesn't really matter how much you've screwed your life up. God still can forgive and heal and mend and make your life better. And the culture cannot promise that. The culture says, well, when you screwed your life up to a certain point, we're going to cast you aside and you're not worth anything anymore. That's the culture's end goal. But God says, no, I love you no matter what. And so writing this and the people that God has put in my life over time throughout this 8 years of writing this has helped me become so much more loving towards people and just more compassionate. And I still like my prayer is constantly, Lord, I want to be courageous. I want to speak the truth, but I want to do it in love. I want to do it in compassion. And that's what this book has really helped me because honestly, this book is more loving than I can appear to be, and that's all God. Like, there's no other way to explain that because I can be very rigid. Like the Tory that I don't want to be. Like, I want to be more like Jesus, but Tory can be rigid. Tory can be unloving. Tory can be legalistic. Jesus is loving. Jesus is also truthful because if you don't have truth, you just have, well, God loves you no matter what. So you can't have all love. You got to have the love and the truth. Love rejoices in the truth, as it says in Second Corinthians when it describes when the Bible describes truth. I mean, when the Bible describes love. Sorry, but this book has just it's all God. It's just a slow process because if you'd have met me when I first started this book, I was not nearly as loving towards people who have made poor life decisions. Let's put it like that. And God has really transformed my heart. And because I wanted to, I was open to Him. And that's just the glory of God. When you are open to the Holy Spirit, He will transform your heart and life. It's hard because you have to surrender. And I don't like to surrender. I like to control outcomes. I'm not good at surrendering anything. But when I
Mhm.
can do that, God will mold my heart. He'll change me to become less like Tory and more like Jesus. And
Mhm.
that's the goal of all of us as young people. So my hope is that when you read this book, you will see the truth because the truth will set us all free. We need truth. Our culture is so full of lies. We need truth. You have to
Mhm.
have that. And I want you to know that none of us have used our lives, none of us have stewarded our lives the way that we should have fully. And God will still use us for His good, for our good and His glory. He will still
Mhm.
use us for our good and His glory. And this book, I want to be a reflection of love and truth, and ultimately hope, like I have on my screen back here. Truth, love, and ultimately hope, because our only hope is in Jesus.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so amazing. And this book was such a great read. I had such a fun time reading it and going through all what it means to be countercultural and how it kind of relates to us, especially as Gen Z and our generation.
Yeah. Do
Took
you
a
have
lot of
any? Let me ask you a quick question on that. Do you have
yeah,
any particular parts of the book that really stood out to you or you really liked? I'm just
yeah.
curious.
So I brought this up earlier. I really appreciated that the embracing adversity part of the chapter that you really talked about how it's so easy to kind of give in to the temptations of life and whether it be through relationships or just something that we want that might be a little bit materialistic or just things that we think we want but we don't actually need. And
Mm.
so to me that really stuck out because it's easy to seek and desire those instant gratification, but you brought up this delayed gratification and kind of moving towards that instead is that's also part of being countercultural. And us as a generation has kind of been moving towards this immediate gratification, and we definitely could make a transition and look to something more delayed that could help us make a more meaningful and longer future.
Yeah.
And then another thing you brought up was about relationships, whether it be our friendships or finding a mentor, and especially our parents, being able to love them the way that God loves us, and kind of be able to find someone that seek someone to be our mentor, that we we find like that we can look up to and create this meaningful relationship. And then
Yeah.
also something about friendships was telling them what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear. And so one of the
Yeah.
lines that you said was it's way easier to tell someone what they want to hear because that just is kind of like giving them that go ahead, telling them what they want to hear. And it might be harder to sit down and be like, this is not, you're not exactly doing this all right. It might be a tough conversation, but it's way more meaningful, and it really shows that you're there for them and that you're looking out for their best interests. I thought that was very meaningful. I love
Yeah.
that part of it because I think that having those relationships is very important, and surrounding yourself with those good and loving people can really make a difference in your life. And so, yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah.
And I think my parents have, I've been blessed with having amazing parents, and they've kind of curated and given me these good morals to look at. And so, kind of giving back and looking to them and treating them in the way that they should be treated is very important, especially because they've given up so much for us. And so if we just take a step back and give credit where credit's due.
Yeah. 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 Appreciate them. Yeah. Appreciate their sacrifice and
Mhm.
not take advantage of them. I remember talking about that in that, I believe that's
Yes, yeah,
chapter, I
exactly.
believe that's chapter 4 of where you talk about forgiving your parents when they've hurt you and also appreciating them because we so many people in our generation today are just self-entitled. Like it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy for us all to be self-entitled and be like, well, I'm owed this. But no, thank your parents, thank your mom, thank your dad. Be grateful for the sacrifices they made so that you can be here today.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I
So I
like
love
that. That's
that.
good.
Yeah, yeah. And then was there a chapter that you found to be the most rewarding or enjoyable to write?
Oh man, now that's an interesting one. Well, the interesting thing about the book is that chapters 5, 6, and 7 are skewed to be they're the really long chapters, and the first
Mhm.
several are short chapters because there was
Yeah.
so much in those. That was the chapter on sex, money, and college. Basically, those three chapters. Honestly, maybe the sex chapter because hey, I mean it's on everybody's mind now as young people
Yeah.
because raging hormones, you know. But that chapter was
Yeah.
very it was such a deep dive for me because I really wanted to know the truth about sex. I wanted to
Yeah.
know, you know, growing up in a legalistic culture, it was always like don't have sex outside your marriage. Don't have sex outside of marriage. Don't have sex outside of marriage. They just constantly promoting that, and I was like, okay, fair enough. I see that, but why? And I never
Yeah.
got a why. I needed to know why is that bad because the culture is constantly saying there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that. It's totally fine.
And I
There's
think it's
nothing
not
wrong.
talked enough about, like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
what
like
it is.
why? You know, you tell me every day and night that you don't that's almost like sex is a bad thing. You know, don't talk about sex. It's not good. You don't want to talk about it. It's only for marriage. I'm like, okay, but why? And then it
Mhm.
turns out that as you read through the book, the neuroscience, not I'm not I start off that chapter not even quoting any Bible verses until way later in the chapter, just going over the data of just hey, casual sex, hedonistic sexual lifestyles, sleeping around, that actually does kind of have very negative consequences. It can really hurt you and it can hurt other people. And so I was like, wow, actually, so there's some good hard scientific evidence for this. And then I transition over to the Bible side of things, and it just so happened what neuroscience told us today 2,000 years ago, the Apostle Paul talked about. He just didn't have the neuroscience data to back it up.
Mhm. Yeah.
They didn't have
Yeah.
all the technology that we do, but it's the same principles of hey, God says to keep sex within the bounds of marriage, and if we do that, our lives will be better. We'll hurt less people, and we'll hurt
Mhm.
ourselves less. And that's what it's all about. Again, it's that's not saying you that sex is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But
Mhm.
if you don't use it within the right boundaries, if you take it out of context, if you say, "Well, I'm gonna do whatever I want with my sexuality," hedonism, again, selfishness, then you hurt people, you hurt yourself, and I don't like people to get hurt. That is loving. That is pro people, and God is pro people. He's pro loving, and that's why I'm that chapter was so important to me to nail that right. That chapter took the longest of any chapter to write because
Mhm.
it was I was just like, man, I need this. Our generation so desperately needs wisdom and just the right path forward with sex and their sexuality. And it turns out God's way for sex and life it just is better. It just turns out
Mhm.
better. I mean, we can do whatever we want to do. We can try any path of sexuality that we want to try, but it's just not going to lead to the outcomes that we think. It's not going to lead to happiness. It's not going to fulfill us ultimately. What
Yeah.
will? and hurt less people and promote more loving and goodness is just following God's way of doing it. So yeah,
Right.
that one really stood out to me. That was the one I was so passionate about because I'd been just on a truth quest for so long to know the truth about that. And
Right.
that yeah, that's an interesting one. So everybody's gonna love talking. I mean, who doesn't like to read a chapter about sex? Am I right?
I know it was definitely interesting that you were able to get both the scientific side of it and then also like the biblical and bring that together into
Yeah. Yeah. And
sharing about the truth. But
yeah. And I spend like 70 or 80% of that chapter is all about the data. So just to be
yes.
clear, that's why again I constantly remind people that this book is not a Christian only book. This is like
Mhm.
this book is for people who are on the fence about Christianity. Even if you're open to the truth, opposed to Christianity, read this book. If you're not a Christian, read it. And
Mhm.
again, even if you don't follow Jesus, even if you reject my chapter 8 on hope, if you don't believe that Jesus is your ultimate fulfillment in life, if you just follow these principles, your life will still turn out better.
Yeah.
And we can have the spiritual
Exactly.
conversation too, which is chapter 8, but again, God's way is better. And then I want you to at least think, hey, maybe if following the Bible on money and sex and all this stuff is actually leads to a better life for me, maybe there actually is some truth to this. And that
Mhm.
truth can point you to the ultimate truth, which is Jesus loves you.
I think that's the most important part is just being able to lay it all out and just say, here, this is the truth. And anyone can read it and learn these life lessons and look at these morals. And I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Just being able to preach those messages.
Yep. It is. It is. That's the ultimate mission, which kind of leads me to my last point of a worthwhile youth. What does it mean? I really want to nail this one on what does it mean to live a worthwhile youth? I say be countercultural. We talked about that at the beginning, but the title of this book is A Worthwhile Youth. What does it mean to live a worthwhile youth?
Mhm.
Well, in short, if you follow the stuff in this book, your life will turn out better. You will live a worthwhile youth. If you make good decisions with your life, with your character, with your health, with your friendships, mentorships, with money, with sex, with college, all this stuff, if you do all these things, your life is just going to turn out better. But if you do all those things, that's not going to give you the most worthwhile youth that you can live. You're missing one element of that, and that is hope. Because if you do all that stuff, you're still going to die. You're going to have a great
Mhm.
life. You're going to die. And that's it. What comes after that? What I want to point out, and I mentioned this in the very last chapter of my book, and I want to read this section of the book. It's on page 216. I'm going to pull it up right now on my screen. And it says, I talk about the last chapter in chapter 8. I talk about, so what does it mean? Sorry, 296 is the chapter, the page. And when I talk about the last chapter, it's on hope, and it's all about Jesus and following his way of doing life. And at the very end, I have a section called the most worthwhile youth. And at the end of that section, I kind of, well, throughout that section, I kind of talk about, hey, we've tried everything. Our generation has pursued every vanity known to man, and nothing is satisfying us.
Mhm.
Maybe, just maybe, there's something more out there. And if we can't find something in this world that can satisfy us, maybe the only thing that can satisfy us is something beyond this world. And what I get at the very end of the section, and I'm going to read this now. I say, as in regards to living a worthwhile youth, what does it really mean to live a worthwhile youth? Well, this is it. I say, in quote, in summary, the most worthwhile youth a young person can live is simply this: love God and love others. This is the whole duty of man. This is a worthwhile youth. In short, if you love others as Jesus would want you to, if you love God first, love your neighbor second, love your generation. Oops, hang on. I gotta my screen came off. Hang on. Let me fix that. The I'll hold that point 1 second. The Sometimes my camera dies and I
Oh,
gotta
no worries.
it's all good. I'm gonna go to my
Oh,
laptop
we're
camera.
good.
Okay. So,
Okay.
in short, what I'm getting at is if you if you follow what if you love God first and love others second, as God would want you to, not the love is approving of all things as our culture says. No, following God's way of love, the definition is in Second Corinthians. If you follow his way of life, if you love him first, put him at the forefront of your life, and you love others, your neighbors second, your generation as God would want you to, that is the most worthwhile youth you can possibly live and life. But we're
Mhm.
talking about our youth right now. So Dr. John Deloney, he's a Ramsey personality at Dave Ramsey's company. He asked the question in one of his books. He says, "What do you want for your one short precious life?" And I say the same thing, except I change life for youth because I'm specifically targeting you guys, our generation, Gen Z. What do we
Mhm.
want for our one short precious youth? And what I ultimately get at is you can do everything I said in this book, but if you don't ultimately love God and love others, it's really a waste of your time
Mhm.
because you're going to miss out on the most important aspect of all of this. It all leads back to Jesus. None of this stuff is to make it is going to make your life better, but ultimately it is following God's way of doing life to promote his glory so we can die. So I can become less like Tori, promote less about Tori's agenda, promote more about Jesus, promote God's agenda, promote the goodness that he offers, the salvation, the hope that he gives us alone that our culture cannot give us. No matter how hard our generation tries, our culture cannot satisfy that longing we have. Only Jesus can do that. And following
Yeah.
him leads us to the most worthwhile youth we can experience.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the book or creation of it, how Gen Z or college kids can what they can take away?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will say that the as far as the schematics of how it all comes down, the by this point the trailer will have already released by the time you see this video. That will be on May 23rd. The book will be available on June 15th. So there'll be a little bit of a period of kind of promotional season of talking to people and doing videos like this, doing collaborations, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I will have several of these kind of highlighting what the book is about, things like this. And then on June 15th, you'll find links to that on my Instagram at Tori Haas, on my Facebook, same thing, Tori Haas. YouTube, my YouTube channel, Be Countercultural is the name of that YouTube channel. I post
Mhm.
the same content on there. It's a very young channel, but if you've not subscribed to it, I would really appreciate it. It's still young. So that way you can say that you were one of the first subscribers when I have millions of subscribers. Okay. So just go ahead and get on the train early. All right. But yeah, I kind of put what I talk about in my book in video form on there. And yes, if it will be available June 15th, links will be all over my social media and on my link tree, but that's on social media. And yes,
Mhm.
you can purchase it that way. And I'm excited for everybody to read it. It's going to be really good. I
Yay!
really want to turn the tide of this culture. That's the purpose. That's why I wrote this whole book for all of our generation. I really want to make a difference here. And if you read this book, it's going to help you. It's going to be good.
Gen Z is getting turned around.
Yes, yeah, I know, and I'm very optimistic. I know we talk about pessimism in our generation. There's a lot of problems, but there's a lot of young people who are taking a stand for Jesus, for
Yeah,
truth, and that's
exactly.
I want to join the mission. I'm not starting this. I'm just joining the fight, and I encourage all of us get off the sidelines, get off the sidelines, arm yourself with truth. Well,
Yeah.
how do I stand up against the culture's lies? Well, I don't have every answer for you, but I have a lot of answers in here. Okay?
Mhm.
With money, with sex, with college, with all this stuff. Join the fight, get off the sidelines, and let's go change the culture.
Let's do it.
And that's what this is about. So, yes, be countercultural, as I always say.
And read A Worthwhile Youth.
Yes, yes. Read a Worthwhile Youth available worldwide June the 15th, 2026. It will be ready to go.
Big drop.
Oh yeah, 8 years in the making, over 100, almost 150 sources, very well written. It's gonna be good. It'll be a blessing to all of us. So
Do you have a
yes,
favorite source?
a favorite
Yeah.
source. Oh man,
Shout out.
well, I sourced a lot of Dave Ramsey books, so
Mhm.
I mean, I kind of sourced some of those. So kind of Ramsey Solutions in general, his company, like a lot of those books inspired me. So maybe that. Honestly, though, the Charlie Kirk book, The College Scam, that was a great source.
Yeah.
There was so many though. I don't know if I really hated the sourcing. It was so annoying. So, so it's like when I have a favorite source, it's like none
Yeah.
because I hated
One
the
of them
sourcing.
is A Man's Search for Meaning. That's a great book.
Yes, that's a source too. I mentioned that in the book at the in chapter one. I believe it's in there. I might have mentioned it multiple times, and it
Yeah.
just literally lays out exactly what I say, which is, hey, if you want to have meaning in your life, you have to do something outside of yourself. So stop being selfish, get over yourself, and
Yeah.
serve others. Serve a cause. Serve Jesus. Serve your neighbors. That will give you meaning and purpose in your life. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that guy knows a lot about meaning because he survived the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And I'm love talking about your book. Super excited for everyone to be able to read it and for Gen Z to be able to kind of get back in touch with truth and learn from everything that you had to write and had down. So thanks again.
Oh yeah. Hey, it's been a pleasure, Pride. Can't wait to see it all in action, and it's always fun to meet with the college fix people. So it's great,
Aw,
and roll Tide, right?
that go dogs.